my number three movie for movies that shaped my view of San Francisco is the 2008 film Milk. This is directed by Gus Van Sant, starring Sean Penn, Josh Brolin, Emil Hirsch. The plot summary: the story of Harvey Milk and his struggles as an American gay activist who fought for gay rights and became California's first openly gay elected official. So this film to me, and why I put it on the list is, San Francisco, like I mentioned earlier, has always been a view in my mind of a city that is about, activism and social progress and change. And I think this, again, came a lot through what the city was known for in the 60s as a place of the hippie movement and people really trying to progress for different types of rights. And this film, to me, really represents that. And in Harvey Milk's story, so, Milk actually, as they talk about in the film, he grew up on the East Coast and came to San Francisco specifically because he was escaping a lot of the discrimination as a gay man that he faced. There's a montage in the opening credits of all the issues around the country of, people oppressing gay citizens and not, and violently attacking them. And this was the environment that Milk, I think, was growing up in on the East Coast. And he saw San Francisco as a place, even, I think, said in the film, like a place where you kind of drop out and find love and can sort of be yourself. And that's why he went there. And I definitely feel this city still represents that. I mean, whether it lives up to that or not is a question, but it definitely represents that, I think, culturally as a place that is, you can be yourself. And Milk definitely demonstrates that, right? He's very brash, self-assured, outspoken. He doesn't hide who he is when he's in San Francisco. He, gets his business, and when he first is greeted by someone in the neighborhood, they're like, "Oh, you're a gay man. Like, we're not going to welcome you here." But he doesn't shy away from that. He's like, "No, I'm going to actually then organize businesses of people that don't mind what your sexuality is." So he really fights for his own rights as a gay man. And I think that, again, represents the activism spirit that I definitely get from San Francisco. But at the same time, the movie, and just like Milk's life, does end tragically. He does get assassinated. And it's not there's a lot of complications that I think even today they don't really know motives in terms of the assassination. But I think, again, this sort of represents that while San Francisco is a place where activists like Milk would pushing for change, there is still that reactionary force against it where you still are up against obstacles. And obviously, again, he unfortunately was assassinated. So the thing I think, though, that this movie does well also is at the very end, it does show that his activism and even in his death was shown as a spark that sort of pushed the gay rights movement even further elsewhere in the country. So it's like San Francisco is looked upon as not only a place where the activists go, but they can be themselves. They can take a political stand. They can have successful victories. He was actually elected into San Francisco city government, and then did a very good job of pushing his agenda within that government against many different forces, including other more establishment gay men who didn't want to rock the boat in this way, but he really wanted to fight for his convictions. And all this fighting, even though he was not successful because he unfortunately was assassinated, that in the long run, he sparked a movement. And at the end of that film, I think is very powerful and really shows that. And I do still view San Francisco as a city that can be the light that can spark a lot of, social change throughout the country in the United States. And just a fantastic film as well. I think performances across the board, just absolutely phenomenal. I mean, Sean Penn definitely deserved this Oscar win for this performance. Totally. Josh Brolin is also just amazing in its very troubled character as a rival, and then the person who ends up assassinating him. But it's not it's a very complex character, and his reasons for things, I think, are not super cut and dry. And really, Gus Van Sant, I just think, does an excellent job of not making this film, too. It's not really an issue movie, but it is. He uses the right parts of Harvey Milk's life, I think, to keep the story interesting, but not kind of beat you over the head with a message, but just make an incredibly inspiring film that I just really enjoy. And for me, I think the film represents that activism that I feel is within San Francisco.
Yeah, great pick. Agree with everything you said. I was so happy to revisit this. I've watched this movie a couple of times before, and every time, I think this might be one of the best quote unquote biopics, at least that come to my mind, of recent years, or maybe any length of time. And it's for the reasons that you talked about, that you're not only transported in this person's life, but I love that it's not a cradle to grave situation. I love that it's very much his story through the through what he stands for, through the movement. It's also an ensemble, which often biopics are not. Like, you really get a sense of all the other people who are in that little photo space shop, who are kind of running this whole thing. What are they up to? What do they really stand for? The people that he's in relationship with, James Franco's character, Jada Luna's character, like you really see kind of a spectrum of also gay life depicted, without holding back anything. But it's done in a way that feels very interesting. The pacing of the movie is great. You sort of feel transported. Like, I watched this movie, I think I was living here when this movie came out. So I remember, just being really moved and enraged and roused by the first time I watched this movie. It's one of the Oscar win speeches, not Sean Penn's, which I totally agree, very well deserved, but the screenwriter Justin Lance Black.
Oh man, yeah.
It's one of the moments where I don't think I've teared up that much on anyone winning an award. I mean, it's just an award, but it really meant something for this movie to be made the way it was made, and then for it to be recognized, and for a young guy like Justin Lance Black to kind of stand up there and share his own story and the struggle that he'd had, and then to pour himself in the making of this movie. It's such a brilliant script. It's one of those things that doesn't happen very often in storytelling, and I think it's like the perfect alchemy of all of it comes together, and the legacy lives on, and you also see the messiness. I guess the last thing I would say, you also see the messiness of activism in this movie. Like, it's not aggrandized that, just because we are fighting for something that we believe is right, everything is all going to be neatly moving in a linear fashion. It's very messy. There's steps, there's setbacks. There are people who don't have their heart in the right place. There are people who are still learning. There are people who are reluctant, who don't want to be a part of it. There are people who are really in it, but yet you can question their motives. There's all sorts of things that happen with movements. And this is very true even today, in San Francisco, where there's sort of it's almost like a joke in San Francisco that, you hear something on a Sunday morning and people are like, it must be a protest. And then, they're off to brunch after that. So it's right. A joke in the city. And you see that kind of the messiness of it all. So love this movie. So inspired by what Harvey Milk did, and was very happy to revisit it.
Yeah, no, I think you raise a lot of great points too about just the politics. Look at this movie through a political lens, because I do think it does cover the messiness and the fact that it's not, you can be an idealist, but you do have to go into this, or not you have to. He chose to go into the system and use the system to his advantage. Is you do still have to wheel and deal. You do have to work with people that aren't aligned on every single ideology. As long as you're not compromising your specific ideology, there's other things you can compromise on and work within the system to eventually, get some change. And sometimes those are hard decisions, but I think what this movie does, and Milk did, is never compromise on his main goal of making sure that that gay people had more rights or equal rights, but was able to work with other people and compromise on other things and just find out what is the path to get there. And that is my goal. And I will work hard to get it done no matter what I have to do. And I have to do some, shady things or whatever, as long as the ends kind of justify the little bit of means of politics, because politics are going to be messy. So I think
it's also very practical though.
Totally. Right? Very practical.
His entire agenda is actually about small businesses doing well, people standing up for themselves. And it's almost like bad business to discriminate against anybody, because you're going to lose out on all those people, which is a baseline message that can resonate with everybody and anybody, which feels very genuine to me, as opposed to, a quote unquote agenda, because it's just so human. Like, we are all, especially in this country, you're in a capitalist country.
Exactly.
So it's the right message, first of all. But then going back to the messiness, he's not all away from controversy either. Like, his whole push for people to come out of the closet.
Oh, right. Exactly. It's problematic.
It's very controversial, quite problematic in many ways. But you also see why that mattered so much, because what he was fighting for was that if everybody knows in their community, in their neighborhoods, the people that they interact with, somebody who is gay, it automatically humanizes this quote unquote issue,
Right.
as opposed to what is being touted that these people are, perverse and they're going to ruin the society. And so it was very important to counter that with the reality and humanity of these people who are just like anybody else,
Right.
So, but at the same time, it's a pretty controversial stance. So
Yep.
yeah, it sort of made me want to get deeper into his life. I know there's a great Oscar-winning documentary
Yes.
that came out years ago, which I have not seen.
Life and Times of Harvey Milk. It's
Exactly.
definitely
So
worth seeing. Yeah.
I want to see that, and yeah, I don't know, made me feel proud of living in the city.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I think that is what I got away from the movie too, of San Francisco is this spark that can light change for good. Hey there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I cover a topic around important people, places, events, and moments in our lives, and then explore it through 3 of our favorite movies. Subscribe right now, or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.